This is just for the people who have obsessive thinking. And from time to time, we're all going to overthink a little bit, maybe get on an obsessive loop for a brief period of time, but it's where it becomes problematic, right? To where you're like, you can't get off that merry-go-round. So I'm going to give you a really good exercise. I actually did a short form video on it, but I was like, oh, I want to expand it here just so I can really help you guys, because I do this with my clients, and then we unbox what the deeper roots are, and then we start healing those roots. But obviously we're not doing that right now. I just want you to kind of see what that process may look like for you. So it's going to require paper and a pen. Do not do this in your head. Do not just off cuff it. This is the problem that a lot of people have, and I definitely did, and I have to remind myself often not to, is stop trying to shortcut it. Stop trying to be like, oh God, I don't know where the pen is. I don't feel like going to get it. I don't want to write. Okay, stop. Do you want the obsessive thought to be processed, or do you want to try to continue to be on the merry-go-round? It's up to you. So pause this video, go get a paper and pen, but it's got to be paper and pen. Okay. Now, let's say you have a thought of anything, whatever your thought is. Let's say it's of this big meeting that you're going to have on Monday. I don't know, whatever it is. Okay. And what I want you to do is I want you to put on the paper and pen everything about your obsessive thought, which means you may need 3 or 4 pieces of paper. This isn't just a jot down thing. You're not just going to be like, oh, worried about the test, or worried about the meeting, or worried about the test, or worried about the procedure, or worried about the date, or whatever the case may be. You don't just write that down. That's just a symptom of what your root is. So let's say with this meeting, let's say you have a little social anxiety, you're worried about looking stupid, whatever. I don't care how rational it is either, by the way. Don't start with the whole judgment of it going, oh my God, that's so stupid. Why would I feel that way? Okay, just write it down. Let's not, seriously, stop with the overthinking here. All right. So you're going to write it down, and you're going to say, okay, it's fine to what if negative, because I'm going to have you do something like we did the other day, but this is the obsessive thought, so you can start to process it. So let's say you write it down. Okay, what if I don't know what I'm talking about? What if I freeze? What if they think I'm dumb? I don't care, but you got it. Don't just jot it down in bullet points. What's your biggest fears within those things? Right? So you're going to start kind of writing it. Might be a thesis. So be prepared. Because this is how you're going to start to understand what your deeper roots are. It's really not the meeting. The meeting is a deeper symptom of things that you still haven't processed from when you were called on in 3rd grade and you didn't know the answer and all the kids laughed at you, right? You could be like, oh my God, like that makes sense. Like I remember that. So why would I? Okay, it doesn't matter. I just want you to get to the root a little bit. And you may not know off the top of your head, and that's fine because we're not going to process it here anyway. But what it does is it helps show a spotlight on at least where those roots are, so you can start to dig into them, right? You could book a session with me. You can book a session with somebody, but you can't always do it on your own, right? Because you're only going to take yourself as far as you're comfortable. And this is the important factor that you remember. You can do some of the work, but until you're at the space where you really are executing the tools and you're allowing yourself to be uncomfortable and you're allowing yourself to do the things scared and you're allowing yourself to do those things, you're not going to be able to do this on your own, because you'll do some of it. But the moment it starts, like, because you're not always going to have the tools to process it, right? Like you're not always going to have those tools to process it. And so that's why you want to make sure that you're also getting those tools, right? And so that's what I'm trying to do here. So as you're writing these things down, again, don't care how irrational they are, how crazy they sound, you're still going to jot them down. Now you have 5 pieces of paper there. Essentially what you're looking at is you're doing a roadmap back to the roots. Right? Because what you may find, right, is, okay, let's use that scenario. Okay, I don't want to do that. I'm afraid of this meeting because last time I remember in 3rd grade, kids laughed at me. I went home, I told my mom, and she said, well, you didn't study enough. Okay, so then I felt bad about myself. And then, do you see what I'm saying? Like there's always these roots. So at least by going back there, you can start to identify why this meeting on Monday is going to seem problematic to you. But when you go back and you realize, well, wait a minute, this isn't 3rd grade. This is a little bit of inner child work too. This isn't 3rd grade anymore. I'm an adult. I know what I'm talking about. Even if you have imposter syndrome, you still know that you know what you're talking about. You do. Do you know everything? No, you don't know everything. Will you mess up? Yes. Is that good? Yes. All these things are beautiful. All these things have to happen in order for you to progress. Okay. So now you go back and you remind yourself, listen, you know what? I'm not in third grade anymore. Plus those kids are not these people. And if they are these people, that's not my problem. Right? That's not my problem. Not everybody's going to understand you. People may have questions. And here's the secret. You don't have to have all of the answers. So if you go into this meeting, this scenario that I'm doing, if you go into this meeting and it kind of goes right a little bit, because you're not going to be able to plan for everything. And that's another thing. You may go back and you go, wow, I see where I'm always stressed because I'm always trying to prevent things. I'm always trying to prevent that third grade scenario. It is what it is. See, here's where you have to understand that people are people. They're going to do things differently. They're going to respond differently. They're going to react differently. These things are all fine. But let's say they ask questions and let's say they say, oh, okay, well, I'm glad that that's what you're working on. Can you expand a little bit more on what you're going to do with blah, 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 whatever that topic is? And you may think, well, I wasn't prepared for that question because they're in your head. You're thinking, I'm going to say this. They're going to say this. I'm going to stop doing that. That's called control. You're stressing it out. People are always going to off cuff it. So let's say they come out of left field and they ask you they ask you a question and you don't know what the answer is. It's literally okay to be like, you know what, let me do a little bit more research on this for you. And I will get back to you on Friday. Like, give them a date. Don't be like, I'll get back to you. Don't do that. But if you don't know it, just say you don't know it. Say, I'm really unsure of that, but let me research that a little bit more so I can have a little bit more clarity to provide you. You know, you don't have to try to BS your way through it. You don't have to try to lie and try to, let me skirt the issue. No, be straight up and be direct. See, you're too worried in that scenario. You're too worried about that being laughed at looking stupid. Well, people are going to value you way more and you're going to have way more integrity when you tell somebody, I don't know that answer, but I can find out that answer for you. Give me 3 days and I'll get back to you. Yeah, that shows way more trustworthiness than, what do you mean you don't know everything on the planet? You're doing that weird perfectionism thing. Then again, going into that, now you can start to go back and be like, well, of course, because I remember when I would do this, Dad would say I should do this more, there's a whole scenario. There's a whole thing. And what will happen is you're going to realize a lot of those obsessive thoughts that go into not being able to control. Another good thing to ask yourself, is this happening right now? Well, no. The meeting's Monday. Okay, then what are we stressing about it? Well, because I feel like I need to be prepared for what? Well, because I'm not sure what they're going to ask. Right. And you're not going to be sure what they're going to ask because you're never going to be sure what they're going to ask because it's not an agenda, right? You don't have the agenda saying you're talking about these things. So to worry about it on Wednesday for a meeting on Monday and go, what if I don't know what I'm talking about? And then you start over cramming and then you're overestimating for yourself. Then you're looking a little desperate. Then you're going to forget everything that you were going to talk about anyway. So that's with that scenario. But with any scenario, you have to get your thoughts down. And this is why those 5 journals are important, right? And you can actually even do that, honestly, in the 5. Now that I'm thinking about it, you could even do that process in the negative journal so you can process it, right? Because you're going to burn that when it's full. But be able to put it down. And it's honesty. You must be honest with yourself, right? Like, are you gray elephanting, not a word, but it is today, gray elephanting something? Like, are you like, well, I know it's there, but I just don't want to deal with it. Okay. But just remember, the gray elephant gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Right? You can't sit there and hold out hope that all of a sudden something's going to change. Well, maybe. Okay, we're not there right now. We can't worry about the maybes. You have to focus now and say, okay, is this happening in this moment? No. Can I do anything about it? Okay, if it's something that you just got thrown into, sure. Do a little, just refresh your memory, a couple little bullet points you want to talk about, but then you're going to have to go with the unknown. Okay? But what this will help you do is it will help you process where your roots are. Not so much going to fix it because we have to process that piece of it, right? But at least you now have an idea versus, how sometimes if let's say, especially when my clients first come, I'm like, I'll ask some questions. They're like, yeah, I don't know where that comes from. Okay, well, that's what we're going to dig down into, right? Let's go deeper. So the symptom, like the having a hard time getting in relationships or trusting people and doing those things, that's a symptom of a deeper root. So healing the symptom doesn't fix the root. Right? It just sort of makes you manage it. So that's kind of where we are. And it's a really good exercise. I'd love to know what you find about yourself down here in the comments. Like, I'd love to do that. But the sooner that you do that and the sooner you're more comfortable with yourself and honest with yourself and you're able to put this down, it's easier for you to let go of things. It's easier for you to process, because a lot of what you're stressed about is you don't know the why, but the why is there. You're just looking at the symptom and you're not looking at why that root started in the first place.